Hello and welcome back to coverage of Grand Prix Detroit. This is round 4, Gabby Sparts with Luis Scott Vargas in the booth. And we have Adam Jansen, who's playing blue-white control, versus Ben Ruven with unknown deck.
Yeah, I love it. I love it that they don't even have a name for the deck because it's just not clear what exactly is going on.
Yeah, so Celestial Colonnade for Adam. Okay, there's the Bauble.
All right. So it looks like Ben actually has a bit of an aggressive bent, since that looks like a wild Mackl that's going to sneak into play.
Oh, is that really what it was?
Yeah. So Mishra's Bauble. So for those who haven't played with the card, you sacrifice it to look at the top card of your opponent's deck or target player's deck, and then the beginning of the next upkeep you draw a card. So the reason to play this card, I have to assume is Tarmogoyf. That's one of the big advantages you get. It just puts an artifact into your graveyard. Any
chance that there are any delve spells or anything like that? That could be another reason.
Well, we're talking about Ben Rubin, so yes, of course there is a chance. We'll see if we can get deck lists here. Okay, looks like we've got him. And so Ben does not appear to have any delve spells. He's got a lot of 1-ofs in his deck. This looks like a 3-color zoo Planeswalkers deck.
Yeah. So this is something.
Yeah. So
can you talk to me? What is going on in this deck? This is silly.
So basically it's like a Naya Zoo deck. You know, it's got Nacatl, Tarmogoyf, Knight of the Reliquary, Noble Hierarch, but it also has just a bunch of interesting 1-ofs like Chandra Pyromaster, Linvala, Gideon Jura, Chain to the Rocks, Journey to Nowhere, the aforementioned 1 Molten Rain, 1 Gitaxian Probe, 1 Mishra's Bauble, and
Seal of Fire.
Yeah, so Ben's got a lot of things going on here.
Yeah, so Adam's gonna Spreading Seas, that Stomping Ground, taking Ben off of mana that's really relevant for that Nacatl, actually.
Yeah, right now the Nacatl's attacking for 2, but Ben's got a handful of green cards he can't even cast. He can hard cast his Gitaxian Probe if he draws it, though.
All right, Ghost Quarter for Adam. And what's Adam playing, Luis?
So this is a more traditional blue-white control deck, and part of his strategy to defeat Eldrazi is he's got removal like Detention Sphere and Oblivion Ring.
There's a Detention Sphere.
Exactly, which don't trigger Reality Smasher, and then he's got a lot of 1-mana removal spells like Condemn and Path to Exile, so he's loaded up on removal in this blue-white deck.
Do you think this deck has a good fighting chance against the Eldrazi? Or it seems like he's tweaked it so that it's shaped that way, correct?
You know, it's interesting. There's nobody who entered the tournament, I don't think, who thinks they have a truly terrible matchup against Eldrazi unless they're willing to take a huge gamble. My guess is that Adam thinks his matchup against Eldrazi is good. I can't verify that it's good. You know, Eldrazi is a very powerful deck. But if he thinks he's got a good Eldrazi matchup, that's likely one of the reasons he chose to play this deck.
So Ben drew another Nacatl last turn, but it's still stranded in the hand because of that Spreading Sea. So he's just still drawing and passing at this point.
Yeah, he's on a mountain of plains and an island, and his hand is Lightning Bolt and it looks like 6 green cards, so it's going to be difficult for him to cast his spells.
I just saw a Baneslayer Angel in Ben's hand.
Yeah, that's unlikely to come out soon. It also doesn't match up particularly well against a deck with Path to Exile and Condemn.
All right, so pass back from Adam. Let's see, Chandra, Planeswalker for Ben. Lightning Bolt targeting Adam.
Yeah, that's the Lightning Bolt so I don't have to discard play, which is not the most exciting. And, you know, this plays right into Adam's hands. He's just going to sit there and keep playing lands and drawing cards, and he's not really under any pressure. His deck will eventually win the late game with Sphinx's Revelation or one of his Planeswalkers.
How do you like Chandra Pyromaster in this metagame?
Honestly, I haven't played with the card, so I think that if you expect to kill 1/1s like Elves, it's not bad, and it's a good way to draw cards against control. It doesn't seem like it matches up particularly well against Eldrazi specifically, but my assumption is that this is Ben's card drawing engine once he deals with all the threats.
I saw a Knight of the Reliquary in Ben's hand. What role do you think that fills in this deck?
It's just the giant threat. It's, you know, 3-mana 5/5-ish creature with some additional abilities. It looks like you can also get a Kessig Wolfrun or a Ghost Quarter. Adam, speaking of Ghost Quarter, Adam actually had to Ghost Quarter his own island to get a Plains to cast Gideon Jura.
Yeah. So
he was not able to assemble double white without that play.
What do you think Gideon's going to do for him in this game?
Adam's looking to end the game while Ben's still mana screwed here. As long as Ben can't cast green spells, then Adam's going to be pretty happy just attacking with that Gideon. He doesn't have to worry about Path to Exile from Ben's deck. I mean, he doesn't know the deck list. Ben actually doesn't have Path to Exile, but it's the kind of card that Ben could have in his deck and could certainly have in his hand, given he can't cast anything else.
Yeah, you could worry about it, right?
Exactly. You know, if I'm Adam, though, I would probably just be content to attack with Gideon, though it looks like he's just going to keep ticking Gideon up.
So Molten Rain for Ben. Unfortunately, he can't cast that either, and still no forest for him.
Yeah.
That Spreading Sea is doing work.
It's unlucky that Ben doesn't have like a Mantis Rider he could draw, because he could actually cast that right now. So Ben
I
now,
think at this point does he have 8 cards? Does he have to move to discard?
yeah, Ben's the unenviable position of it's like turn 8 or 7, and he's choosing what to discard to hand size with nothing in play.
All right, so discarding that Tarmogoyf.
Adam now deciding, maybe it's time to get in with Gideon.
Yeah. So rumbling in for 6.
And even if Ben starts to mount a comeback, Celestial Colonnade from Adam will start hitting for 4 too if Ben ever taps out.
Well, Ben's really not finding any forest, so I think he's ready to call it a day right here.
It's pretty funny. Spreading Seas is there to defeat Eldrazi primarily, but turns out Spreading Seas on one of Ben's land is enough to take things home.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the fact that he didn't have any forest, but also that in this case, not having, a Stomping Ground is so punishing to the Nacatl deck. So, yeah, that was a really nice play by Adam, and he was able to ride that to victory.
Yeah, and the fact that Ben cast one spell, one Nacatl plus 1 Lightning Bolt that game certainly helped.
So taking a look at the player's sideboard, Adam has a couple of options. What do you think he's maybe bringing in against this kind of deck? I mean, actually, if you're Adam, do you even know what you want to do? We'll actually tune back into this game in a little bit. We're going to take a look now at David Ochoa versus Dan Lanthier. We have blue-white Eldrazi. Both players are 3-0 versus Infect.
And it looks like David's actually just stuck on 2 lands here since he's only got the Eye and the Dark Hour Waste in play. But that's enough to cast a bunch of Eldrazi, cast out Mimic and 2 Displacers. I actually really like Displacer in this matchup, though David's not very close to activating it, because it can kind of blank a lot of Infect's pump spells. They attack and play a pump spell, and you just use the Displacer to blink the attacker.
So would you say that in that sense, it's the threat of being able to do it is even more valuable than actually being able to in some ways?
Definitely. You in a game where David has more mana, so maybe not this game, but you could expect Dan to attack with like 2 Infect creatures and David just to keep his mana up, and Dan just to pass and David to pass, because if David uses the Displacer, then all of a sudden Dan can play a pump spell. So
the Blighted Agent actually gets in there for a lot, both between Noble Hierarch and Pendelhaven, pumping it to a 3.
Yeah, so it looks like that 3. We're going to try to get the Infect count up on the screen as soon as we can, potentially. David did find his second land here, and is going to be able to play a Thought-Knot Seer, it looks like.
So Hallowed Fountain for David.
One good thing about playing as Infect, you can just fetch untapped Hallowed Fountains, and it doesn't matter a whole lot.
Oh, yeah. How do you think generally Infect pairs up against Blue-White Eldrazi, or flavors of Eldrazi for that matter?
Blue-White, I think, is a little harder for Infect than something like Red-Blue, because Path to Exile is just an additional card that's great, and also Displacer, like I said, is a relevant card. So, looks like David actually is going to get to play a 4-drop here.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. So here comes Thought-Knot Seer. Pendelhaven's the card in Dan's hand. Doesn't get to take it.
So
but if you're David, you're happy to see that, right?
Yeah, you're happy to do that. Your Mimic's now a 4/4, so you can just attack with everything. And Dan has to block at least the Eldrazi Mimic. He could go to 1 by letting the 2 Displacers through, but without, he has to block the Mimic because it's a 4/4.
The Thought-Knot Seer is a problem behind too, because I think David's maybe at 6 Infect. We're not sure because we tuned in a little bit late. I think that's what I saw earlier, but yeah, the Ink Moth looks like it might go under the bus right here.
And one good thing about that block is that it actually ends up sending the Mimic to the graveyard because it gets a -1/-1 counter. Dan just needs a pump spell here. I think that will do it, assuming David is a low enough or a high enough poison count. And looks like we're sending in for four poison here.
This could be enough. We're not exactly sure how much poison David has. It looks like he had 6.
You're right. He had 6.
Wow. And that's going to take the game for Dan. They're still in game 1, however. What happens here post-board, do you think?
It doesn't actually get that much better for the Eldrazi deck because they already have all the removal in the main deck. The Infect deck, yeah, they get to tune their deck a little. This is one of those matchups that actually doesn't change that much in sideboarding. I mean, depending on each player's individual card choices, it could be more impactful.
So we're going to take a look back here at the game between Adam and Ben. They're moving post-board. pull out those deck lists real quick. Where are they? Here we are.
So, Adam, I think given what you saw game 1, I could see bringing Timely Reinforcements and Wrath of God, and Baneslayer Angel even. Just those cards tend to be good against Zoo. Ben, I think, might actually go a little lower. He's got Molten Rain to bring in to disrupt Adam's mana base. I generally like Molten Rain against any kind of blue-white deck here. And
it's pretty nice at taking care of that colony, too.
yeah, Ben also has 1 Mana Tithe in his sideboard. Ben Rubin is yeah. He's in the Hall of Fame. He just came in second at Grand Prix Oakland. He's got a very unique play style. It's always awesome seeing Ben play.
I think, oh yeah, Ben does have, I thought Ben didn't find any lands with his opening hand, but I think he found enough. Yeah, watching Ben play it was cool covering some of Ben's matches last week. He definitely brought a spicer this time around.
Yeah. And it looks like Adam's taking a mulligan here. One thing that if Ben brought in Molten Rains, then Adam's sideboard or mulliganing. Actually, when you're a land-heavy deck or a deck with a high mana cost, like Adam's blue-white deck tends to be, he's got Cryptic Command and Gideon and 4 Supreme Verdicts. Then Molten Rain gets even more punishing because this blue-white deck doesn't actually have a lot of card drawing.
So it looks like Wooded Foothills for Ben Rubin. Adam cracks. I think that's a Hallowed Fountain.
Yeah, and he's opting not to pay 2 life for no reason, which is a pretty good play. So Ben has slowed down his deck post-board. And this is kind of a board configuration where if you're Ben, I don't think you hate if your opponent has Timely Reinforcements in their deck. That's the kind of anti-aggro card that will not be all that effective against Knight of the Reliquary, Chandra Pyromaster, and Molten Rain.
So other than to feel something, why do you think Ben played this deck this week? And do you think it can do something against the Eldrazi?
Yeah, I think Ben, he has tuned his deck, and presumably, like Adam has, a good amount of concessions to the Eldrazi matchup, like cards like Chain to the Rock and Journey to Nowhere. Like, these are cards that are effective. 1 Molten Rain in the main deck and 3 in the sideboard.
Yeah, Fork Bolt also could be able to take care of a couple of Mimics when they're small. So cracking that Windswept Heath. Ghost Quarter is a land for Ben this turn. Also the Wooded Foothills.
It's interesting to see whether Ben plays Molten Rain or Knight of the Reliquary. Knight gives you an advantage every turn some play. You always have incentive to play your creatures first and then play your Molten Rains later. It is nice to be able to cast Molten Rain and just deal with or make it so your opponent can't cast other spells, though.
So I think here comes a Knight of the... Oh no, Molten Rain. Taking care of that Hallowed Fountain. Down goes a Hallowed Fountain. Adam takes 2. Putting him down at 18.
Unfortunately for Ben, Ghost Quarter is not going to be all that effective at keeping Adam off mana. He has so many basics in his deck.
Yeah.
It will be effective at shutting down Celestial Colonnade. I could see that coming up much later in the match.
I mean, it can possibly screw him a little bit on colors, too.
Yeah, we even saw Ghost Quarter himself game 1, so imagine if Ben had killed his Adam's Plains, he might not be able to play his double white spells. Adam's got a lot of double white spells. Looks like he has 1 Mystic Gate. That's the card I'd be interested in seeing how many he was playing, because that card does help cast Cryptic Command and Supreme Verdict very well.
Yeah, I was going to say not to forget Cryptic Command, triple blue, and if you're just having like a basic Plains, that's not going to help you very much in that area. Glacial Fortress for Adam. All right, Spreading Seas, taking down that Stomping Ground.
And Adam's trying to do the same thing he did last game, which is cut Ben off of green, but I don't know how well it's going to work this game. Well,
I think he just drew a green source.
Yeah, Air Mace off the top was very good. And also, Ben can play a Chandra Pyromaster here, and if Adam doesn't have a Detention Sphere or Oblivion Ring, it's going to start using the 0 ability to get Ben extra cards. Ben could also play Knight of the Reliquary, and I think that's the Mana Tithe in his hand. Counter a spell unless your opponent pays 1. So I guess he can't actually play Knight and Mana Tithe on the same turn unless he leaves up Ghost Quarter to Ghost Quarter his own land, which is not a play you really love making.
How many points does Ben get in this match? Like, not just this matchup, but just in general, for people not having any idea what he's playing.
I think he gets a decent amount of points. He's chosen some unconventional choices, and one of the advantages of that is your opponent's not going to play around cards like main deck Molten Rain or one Mana Tithe in the sideboard. You get an advantage out of surprising your opponent here.
So Ben back online with a green source. 4 mana. This looks like it might be Chandra. Chandra Pyromaster comes down for Ben. Ticking up, putting Adam down to 16.
And I'd imagine the Chandra's going to start ticking neutral next turn as she just uses her 0 ability. Though I think Adam has both Oblivion Ring and Attention Sphere, so one of those is going to come out and get the Chandra.
Yeah, it looks like this is immediately going to take care of her. Yeah, there we go. So Oblivion Ring is going to take care of that Chandra, but still, it was a very nice turn for Ben a couple of turns ago, and especially now that he has green too. He's not going to end up with like a bunch of Knight of the Reliquary stranded in his hand.
Yeah, the spreading seed is still being annoying though. Ben's now restricted to 1 card per turn. He's leaving up Ghost Quarter, so if he needs to, he can Ghost Quarter his own Stomping Ground, get basic Plains, and cast Mana Tithe. But again, that's just not a play that you're really anticipating, feeling happy about.
It might be the play that he might have to make. We don't know what Adam has in hand currently.
Unfortunately for Ben, one of Adam's main 4 mana spells, Supreme Verdict, is just uncounterable. So it just randomly gets around Mana Tithe. And Adam even expertly playing around Mana Tithe by playing his land first here.
All right, so here we go. The Tension Sphere going to take care of that Knight of the Reliquary. Off it goes. Ben does have a second copy of it, though.
Ben on multiple 1 mana green spells in hand too, which are kind of losing utility the longer the game goes. Like one of the big advantages of Nacatl or Noble is how fast it is, and he's in a position now where he can play them this turn, especially since he drew a Wooded Foothills, but just playing a 1-drop on turn 6 is really not where you want to be turn 5.
Yeah, I mean the problem too is that he has a lot of cheap spells in his hand, but he just can't deploy them that quickly. So in the face of that, he can play, if he could go like Knight of the Reliquary into Nacatl, like that'd be nice, but he doesn't have the second green for that. Although that is going to get him another green source.
Yeah, the Wooded Foothills lets him play Knight and Nacatl. Depending on what he gets, he actually still could get a Temple Garden if he wanted to, and then he could play Knight and leave up Mana Tithe. It's funny, one of the reasons Spreading Seas is so good is that the opportunity cost is pretty low. You spend 2 mana and you get your card back. Actually, is that a Fracturing Gust?
Oh.
Wow, this is going to be amazing.
Fracturing Gust is going to take care of both of those enchantments. It's going to get back Knight of the Reliquary and Chandra, and the Spreading Seas is gone now. That was incredible.
Yeah, you got the Spreading Seas for value, and you got back a Knight and a Chandra. So Ben basically played a Knight, a Chandra, and a Disenchant on the Spreading Seas all in the same turn.
Wow, that was such a big turn. The Chandra's going to take up and put Adam down to 15. And now what do you do with your Adam? Things just change so quickly.
Yeah, and Adam has, it looks like a pair of Cryptic commands, but Ben has 2 threats in play. Cryptic's so much worse when your opponent's got on multiple threats. Also, I suspect the first Cryptic's going to get Mana Tithe here. Oh, there's a Molten Rain. This is awesome. I just love BR, stringing together these Naya mid-range cards in a way that's working really well.
Okay, so the 0 ability for Chandra reveals another Chandra Pyromaster.
Yeah, that's not the optimal reveal.
Well, at least he doesn't get to draw it.
Yeah. It's better than drawing it for your turn, but Ben's still not super thrilled about it.
So Knight of the Reliquary crunches in. Adam's going to go ahead and take it, putting him down at 9.
So I think we're going to see Cryptic counter bounce Knight or bounce Chandra. And I think we're going to see Mana Tithe. All right, let's wait for it.
Molten Rain targeting. I think he targeted the Celestial Colonnade, is that correct?
Yeah.
All right.
Adam could consider letting it resolve, then end of turn bouncing Knight or Chandra and drawing a card. But I think you'd rather just have the lands.
Well, I think he agrees with you too. So here we go. Tapping for Cryptic Command. Cryptic Command, counter Molten Rain, bounce the Knight of the Reliquary. Here comes Mana Tithe. Very cool. So Mana Tithe, Adam can't pay for it. There goes the Cryptic Command. He gets to keep everything. Wow, this game has turned around very quickly.
Yeah, Adam falls to 7. That Fracturing Gust is really what did the trick. And here, Ben is happy just playing on Nacatl, because even though he's got to think that Adam might have cards like Supreme Verdict in his deck. Remember, players don't know the exact deck list. He doesn't know that Adam's actually potentially on 4 Verdict and a Wrath. But even though you playing out your second creature, the Chandra in play makes you a lot happier about that.
He didn't even need to, but now he has a Nacatl in play too. I mean, he has enough pressure as things are right now, but things are looking pretty good here for Ben.
Yeah, he's more worried about 1-for-1 removal. Oh wow,
Wear Tear.
Yeah, all the enchantment removal. I guess if you see Detention Sphere and Spreading Seas game 1, and now you've even seen Oblivion Ring, which implies either a split of spheres or potentially 5 or more.
Well, Ben's a fantastic player, and if he's seeing those enchantments and he presumes, like, okay, this is how we're going to be taking care of the Eldrazi in Modern, it's these enchantments so that we don't have to target things like Reality Smasher, then bringing Gust is great.
Yeah, and it was really good. So Adam's going to stop Ben's attack step with a Cryptic Command here. I'd be surprised if Ben did deploy the second Knight in addition to the 2 creatures he has in play, because he has more than lethal. Just at this point, he's got a good setup, even if one of the Knights even if the Knight in play gets killed. Nacatl plus the Chandra is a lot of pressure. So the second Knight, I think, is overextending a bit much. Ben does get to activate his Knight of the Reliquary now, assuming it's getting tapped.
And I saw in Adam's hand a copy of Elspeth's Sun's Champion. Does that do anything right now if Adam has another land?
Yeah, Elspeth, it can minus to kill the Knight, though my guess is Adam is more likely to plus it and put tokens into play. Ben does have an answer to that. And, Adam's an experienced player. He just recently won Grand Prix Vancouver.
He did. And what was he piloting?
He's piloting a blue-red Surge deck, I believe. That was
very cool.
This was limited.
Yeah.
And as such, I would expect him to at least consider the possibility that Ben has Kessig Wolfrun in his deck, which he does, because neither reliquary decks tend to play that. And Kessig Wolfrun giving trample means that making Elspeth tokens just doesn't do all that much.
I lost to Adam Jansen in PTQ back when PTQs were still a thing, semifinals, and that was when I was first starting to play Magic. And he's a lovely player here from the Chicagoland area, here in the Midwest, and fantastic player too.
I lost to Ben Rubin in Urza's Saga draft before I had even come close to playing in a Pro Tour. This was 15 years ago. Because we actually were both also from the Bay Area. Kind of funny. So Ben decided to go get Horizon Canopy, and his Knight targets are like Horizon Canopy, Ghost Quarter, Wolf Run. I think he's able to leverage Knight even though it's getting tapped every turn.
There it is, Elspeth's Sun's Champion. Yeah, so I think he's reaching over to find some tokens.
So Ben has
3 soldiers.
Ben has a Lightning Bolt in hand, so that puts Adam to 4 already. He can Chandra Adam to 3, and then make it and kill one of the tokens. So
he's not dead.
Well, Ben can also get. He's dead to the Elspeth that Ben just drew already. I think he can just get Kessig Wolfrun to finish off the game, because this essentially removes a blocker and deals a damage. So Adam's at 6. So Wolfrun makes the Nacatl not quite lethal. Can give +3/+0.
Yeah, so he's blocking with both of them. Here comes Ben tutoring up, presumably Kessig Wolfrun. There it is. All right, that's enough damage. Ben, Ruben evens it out. They're going to a game 3. And yeah, we got to see this sweet, sweet Naya Zoo deck in action. That was very cool.
Yeah, Ben's deck, like the big Zoo deck, kind of went according to plan. He was able to, he didn't rush Adam down. He actually won a kind of an attrition game with Mana Tithe and Chandra and Fracture and Gust. So I would expect Adam to maybe recalibrate his sideboard a little bit, because after game 1, maybe you think Ben is on a more aggressive deck. You did, you did see Wild Nacatl, and a card like Timely Reinforcements, it buys you time, as the name implies, but it's not going to beat a selection of Planeswalkers and Knights of the Reliquary. It's just going to delay them.
So now that you're Adam and you saw, I mean, that was a blowout, right? It was just actually a blowout.
Yeah, the Fracture and Gust was really what turned the game around.
Yeah, so now given that, what specifically, is there anything you'd still like bring in from your sideboard? Is there anything you'd change? Like maybe those Disdainful Strokes don't look quite as bad anymore?
Yeah, I think that Adam might have slightly more incentive to bring in something like Negate, because Negate can counter a Chandra or a Fracture and Gust, or even a Lightning Bolt if you really need to. But I don't know that he's going to go too deep on things.
Yeah, I mean, also part of it is just depending on how much he extends into it. Obviously, in this case, it didn't seem like he was playing around something like Fracturing Gust and really,
Yeah.
really got him.
I don't think that Adam was, keeping that in mind, especially since not only is that not a card that every white-green deck plays, it's also a card that you wouldn't necessarily expect to get brought in against your blue-white control deck, though in retrospect it actually looks really good.
How good do you think is the Supreme Verdict here?
I like it because it kills Knight of the Reliquary, and then it makes it so like you can pick off a Knight and a Coddle or a Knight and a Noble Hierarch.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably better than some of Adam's options here. Like, Condemn I'm a little less happy about. It does kill Knight or Nakato, but it's a 1-for-1, and Knight has a lot of utility outside of combat also.
Right. Yeah, so we'll see what Adam ends up doing here post-board. That was a very well-played game by both players. And that Forked Bold's still there.
I especially liked when Ben tapped one land and cast a Mana Tithe. That was,
Yes.
that was a good play.
I think everybody enjoyed that, Luis. I don't think it was just you.
Ben trimming Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt is actually, it's the kind of card that people don't sideboard out as often as they should because it's such a powerful card. Obviously,
Right.
it's just one of the best Magic cards, but it's not actually great against a blue-white deck that doesn't kill anything.
So we're going to take a look at how Ochoa and Dan are doing. We're back in this matchup. Blue-White Eldrazi versus Infect. Looks like a pretty good start for Ocho.
Oh yeah, he's got the turn 1 Mimic, Endless One for 2, and I saw an Eldrazi Temple and a Thought Knot Seer in hand, and this is game 3, so this is the draw you want when you're Eldrazi every game.
Yeah, so Breeding Pool for Dan. So a question that I've been asking the people that have been playing Infect this weekend is, do you think the Infect has the tools to race Eldrazi?
Not draws like this. Like, that's the thing. Like, sometimes they can. Like, Dan's going to play a Blighted Agent here, and he's going to have, 2 Pump Spells and a Dismember left in his hand. But David's going to play a Thought Knot Seer. He's going to take maybe a Dismember or a Pump Spell and attack for 6. It's just so hard to race a deck that their 2-mana 4/4 also takes your best offensive threat out of your hand. It doesn't also help that the Blue-White Eldrazi lists play Past Exile and Dismember, so David could easily just have a follow-up of being able to kill Dan's creature.
Mm-hmm. So Dan is going to play that Blighted Agent, but like you said, this is not a very fast clock right now, and David's start was fantastic.
Yeah, David even has the gut shot.
Oh, wow.
That is...
I think Dan has Mutagenic Growth in hand, though.
Yeah, but David is likely to cast the Thought Knot Seer first, just to make sure the way is clear. Then he can take the Mutagenic Growth, gut shot the Blighted Agent. I mean, Dismember's annoying. If Dan untaps and casts Dismember on David's Thought Knot, Dan gets to draw a card, David loses a 4/4. So it's possible that David just takes the Dismember, even knowing that Mutagenic Growth is going to counter gut shots.
So Eldrazi Temple for David. Let's see what happens. So Thought Knot Seer, this is what you're talking about. Let's take a look at Dan. And so Dan could respond here if he wants. He's going to just go ahead and show his hand. Looks like Might of Old Crows, another Blighted Agent. Yeah, Mutagenic Growth, a land. I can't...
And Dismember is the last card.
Is that the last card?
Yeah, so David's choices here are really Mutagenic Growth or Dismember. Since Mutagenic Growth counters the gut shot, and Dismember counters the Thought Knot Seer, it's actually a kind of tough decision, because if you take the Dismember and then gut shot the Blighted Agent, Dan's going to be obliged to Mutagenic Growth it, but you're attacking for 6 and a 13, and then Dan's next turn is a Might of Old Krosa. I guess you open yourself up to losing to Become Immense. Is that accurate? You'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, this is the safer play.
So he's going to take away that Mutagenic Growth.
I think that David's far enough ahead that he doesn't need to risk it. He would rather just make sure that Dan doesn't untap with a poison creature in play, and then attack Dan for 6 down to 13. Dan untaps. Also, you really have to factor in that Dismember costs you 4 life here.
Yeah, that's true.
So Dan's going to be able to kill the Thought Knot Seer with Dismember and draw a card, but 4 life is going to drop him down to 9, and David does have more follow-up.
And then he also just doesn't have a clock, period. So David's going to get in there, putting down to 13, and Dan, like you said, he doesn't have a board presence here. He can't take that Thought Knot down. So we're going to resume on this match, presumably later on, but our main match is currently undergoing, so we're heading back right there.
My guess is that we're not going to be resuming on that match because it's going to end in like 2 turns.
That's fair. That's fair.
At least that's what David hopes, since he's currently the one who's very far ahead.
Yeah, that's true. So Adam, Ben again. Celestial Colony and Island for Adam. Looks like just lands for both players so far. Wooded Foothills, Arid Mesa for Ben.
And again, Ben has, I think, between how he's built his main deck and how he's sideboarded, most of the time he's not going to be, playing anything in the first few turns. He's just got Noble Hierarch and Wild Mcclain. This isn't a zoo deck with 16 1-drops.
Right. And Adam really doesn't have any pressure either because so many of his spells are reactive and, Ben's not really playing anything out.
Yeah. Adam's main, pressure, in quotes, is spreading seas. That's
that's
his early disruption. One cool thing about Adam's list is he's got Crucible Worlds in his deck. I love that card.
Ooh, that card's spicy.
And he's got that to combo with Ghost Quarter or Tectonic Edge. Yeah, this is a deck that is very much built with Eldrazi in mind.
Yeah, I mean, Adam's a very strong player. He can see how big the Eldrazi menace are. He came prepared, ready to fight him.
And then he faced Naya Zoo from 5 years ago. Rubin Zoo is the deck that actually won Brian Kibler a Pro Tour in Austin.
Oh, very cool.
And Ben Rubin also, I believe, went 10-0 with it. So they have experience playing this Naya Zoo deck that doesn't have a ton of low drops but has a lot more staying power.
So Ben has a lot of lands in his hand. I see at least 2 Stomping Grounds and I think another Wooded Foothills. There's a Wear and Tear right there, which is nice, but it does seem like he has a lot of lands. He's flooding a little bit. So untapped land for Ben, 3 mana, Molten Rain.
And one feature of Adam's deck list is he doesn't actually have any hard counters besides Cryptic Command. He's got 4 remands, and that's about it. I mean, he may be sided in the negate. So a lot of Ben's spells are just going to resolve. Whereas, some versions of Blue-White just have many more counter spells.
Right. So Ghost Quarter for Adam just to pass back immediately. Ben finds a copy of Gitaxian Probe.
Well, you can just add it to any deck. It's better in Ben Rubin's deck than most because Ben does such a good job using that extra information. I think him knowing what is Adam's hand, and look, this is critical. Knowing that Adam has Dispel and Timely Reinforcements, that is really going to shape Ben's plays.
Yeah.
Wow, Molten Rain really got Adam this game. He's got 2 5-drops and a 4-drop in hand, and now only 3 lands in play and none in his hand.
Wow, yeah, that Molten Rain's looking like it's going to do a lot of work.
If Ben has another Molten Rain, I think things look very good for him. Ben checking out Timely Reinforcement. So if Ben plays a creature, Adam can then play Timely to get 3 1/1s, and Ben's currently at much lower life than Adam, so the gaining 6 life clause won't kick in. Gitaxian Probe is good tech against Timely Reinforcements.
Yeah, I'm sure that's why he has it in his deck.
Yeah, he built his deck specifically to defeat Timely Reinforcements. It looked like he built his deck to beat a bunch of Oblivion Rings last game. I mean, the Fracture
It really did. Yeah. It really did.
So if Ben has a 4th land, which looked like he did.
Yeah, he definitely did.
He could play Chandra's turn and he knows it'll resolve. He could also play Tarmogoyf and know that'll resolve, but Tarmogoyf does get answered by Timely a little bit better, so I would expect to see a Chandra here unless he's got a different 4-drop he's found.
And I think he has a sitting there right up front, and I believe that that's his plan for now. So cracking that Wooded Foothills.
Ben also has Seal of Fire in his hand, which is essentially a shock that sits in play. It's an enchantment. You can sack it to deal to. And the upside, much like Mishra's Bauble, is it just makes your Tarmogoyf a little better. It's an enchantment to fuel your Tarmogoyf.
All right, so here we go. Chandra Pyromaster. Ticking up, putting Adam to 17. And pass back to Adam.
And I think Adam's going to not want to crack the fetch. Getting Hallowed Fountain is good, but you'd really rather just leave lands in your deck. It doesn't matter that much. And Adam found a land. That was what he was hoping for. It was the best he could hope for.
He still has a lot of 5-drops left in his hand, though.
He does, and his answer cards, Dispel, Timely Reinforcement, Supreme Verdict, don't answer Chandra. He doesn't have any of his Oblivion Ring or Detention Sphere. So I actually would expect Ben to pull ahead here, though Baneslayer Angel is a real threat. Ben doesn't currently have that much removal that can deal with it.
Yeah, so Ben's going to 0. It's an Arid Mesa from the top. I'm going to go ahead and play that.
I think Ben hopes that Adam draws Detention Sphere or Oblivion Ring, because Ben has multiple ways to kill enchantments. He has the Gust and the Wear Tear in hand. He would really love to get into that kind of fight.
Yeah, I mean, currently they're just kind of dead in his hand.
Yeah, they're future prospects. Ben deciding whether or not to play Tarmogoyf, and this is the sort of thing that Ben Rubin certainly is aware of what's going on and will think about. But I think he does want to play it. It's not like he's running into Cryptic Command. He actually knows Adam's entire hand, and he doesn't actually care if Tarmogoyf gets Supreme Verdicted either.
Yeah, so it looks like he's just going to go ahead and pass back to Adam.
Everything's turning up BR today. That's a Detention Sphere.
There we go. Looks like Adam's going to be casting a Detention Sphere right here. There we go. Yeah, so it's going to target Chandra.
And
Away Chandra goes.
Ben presumably going to deal with that with Wear Tear.
That's certainly what it looks like. There's another copy of Fracturing Gust there at the bottom of his deck.
Is that is that Stomping Ground tapped or untapped?
Yeah.
Or is it in purgatory?
It's kind of in purgatory. It's in land purgatory for now.
It looks more untapped than tapped, but it also looks like Ben could be considering whether or not to leave it and play one or the other. Ben is deliberate. All right, it is untapped.
Yeah. So he's going to take 2 and put him down at 10.
So Ben knows about the Dispel, but he also knows that he's got Fracturing Gust, so he would want to Wear Tear end of turn and then untap and cast Fracturing Gust.
Mm-hmm. So here we go.
So getting Stomping Ground untapped, I guess Ben is wanting to play around Spell Pierce, and it's actually really funny. He knows that Adam has Timely Reinforcements in hand.
Mm-hmm.
It behooves Ben to go down to lower life total, because his life total doesn't matter. And if Adam ever goes to lower than Ben, then Timely Reinforcements gain 6. So Ben just wants to lower his life total to make sure that Timely Reinforcements does not gain life.
Yeah, really nice played by Ben for sure. But Adam is going to go ahead and crack that Flooded Strand and get a Hallowed Fountain. Take some life too. And like you said, he doesn't mind going a little bit lower in life in this case because that Timely Reinforcements is just going to be great if he does manage to gain some life from it. Dispel. So that's going to take care of the Wear and Tear, though Ben does get to untap here. And like you said...
Mishra's Bauble.
Mishra's Bauble is going to let him see the top card of Adam's hand. Eventually draw a card as well.
Yeah, he's going to see what Adam draws next. Ben's going to draw a card on the beginning of his next turn upkeep. He's going to... It's actually... He has to remember that trigger. He could actually forget that trigger if he's able to... Or if he manages... Not that I expect him to do so.
I've heard Zoo players, because Mishra's Bauble gets played in Zoo, heard from a number of Zoo players that's like a very easy trigger to miss sometimes. But by the time it's actually gonna matter, yeah.
Well, it's a delayed trigger, and those,
yeah.
you know. It's funny, Ben could have looked at the top card of his deck, and if it was a land, Fracturing Gust, used Chandra's 0 and put the land into play, or if it was a card he just didn't want to draw. So it's possible that he wanted to use that differently. But it looks like Gust is going to come out here.
So Fracturing Gust, taking care of the Detention Sphere. Back comes the Chandra Pyromaster. Tick up, putting Adam to 13. In comes a Goyf. This Goyf is pretty big at this point.
Yeah, enchantment, artifact,
Instant.
land, instant, sorcery,
Yeah.
so 5/6. So I think Ben is okay with Timely Reinforcements getting cast. And again, you see an untapped Sacred Foundry, putting himself to 8, so that Adam, or not. We'll see in a second here.
Yeah, it looks like he did
Well,
put
it's
it into play
untapped.
untapped. So presumably Ben should be at 8, meaning that, yeah, Adam shouldn't be gaining any life from the Timely Reinforcements.
Looks like there's some debate here.
Well, it's a nice play if that's what he wants to do.
So, if Adam draws a land, I think he just slams Baneslayer, and then Ben might have almost close to lethal, because Chandra can make Baneslayer unable to block. Goyf attacks for 5, Chandra's 6, Steelfire's 8. Not quite enough, because Goyf already has an enchantment in the graveyard.
Yeah, quite close though. Yeah, they're counting up how big this Goyf is right now.
Well, it's possible that Ben, I think there might be a life total dispute, but Fracturing Gust does gain 2. That's not an optional ability. It's actually a disadvantage here. It's kind of funny. So,
Yeah, so our players are still figuring out their life totals here. Fracturing Gust, another card that is very popular in the Elves sideboard. Looking pretty good right there, too. Do you think this card is pretty good this weekend in general?
I think it's one of your more effective answers. It's hard to cast, right? It costs 3 green-white hybrid mana and 2 colorless, so or too generic rather. It's not the easiest to cast, but if you are able to cast it, it's the best card against boggles and very good against affinity. It's expensive, 5 mana is a lot, but the fact that it hits 2 decks and it hits them very effectively, and apparently is good against blue-white, also helps.
Little did you know, it was also good against blue-white.
Yeah, it's always funny. So we've got a modern metagame that's, it's very diverse, but the top couple decks really have targets on their back, affinity and Eldrazi. So people really build decks with those decks in mind. Both of these decks are facing a deck they had no idea about when constructing their deck, presumably. Like didn't really factor into their card choices. But you still have to play this matchup now that you're paired, and it's interesting seeing how blue-white deals with Naya Zoo and vice versa, because neither of their card choices are really informed by what they're sitting across from. They're both much more metagamed to live in a world of Eldrazi and affinity. As the great life total debate rages on.
Oh, I like what Ben's doing here. I like doing that in general when you want to make sure you remember something like the Mishra's Bauble in this case. Putting a dice on top of your deck just to make sure that you don't forget whatever it is you want to do. Draw cards, scry at the beginning of your turn, whatever it may be.
I recommend just remembering, but
oh, okay.
They're both good plans.
Gotcha.
That's all well and good till you forget, and then you tried to get too cute.
Luis, what do you think you would have played this weekend had you been playing?
I might have gotten sucked into playing the elf deck wait, the Chandra already got used this turn?
I think it just went up. It did get used this turn.
I see. The turn took so long that maybe they're on a second turn. Maybe both players aren't aware of it.
We time shifted?
It's like second breakfast. But I would have probably played elves. The elf deck that Matt Nass and Raptor are playing is pretty cool. I don't want to admit it, but I might have played Blue-White Eldrazi. Those are probably the 2 decks. Yeah.
I mean, you can take partial claim for this metagame looking like this weekend. So I don't know that you can't not admit it. You're just going to have to admit it.
Look, there were a lot of people with Eldrazi Temple on their deck. I was just one of them. So Ben did draw the card off of his Mishra's Bauble. Also got Seal of Fire in play.
We're back on Adam's turn right now.
And he did draw the land. So Baneslayer Angel, and Adam's at 8. So if he plays Baneslayer, he actually dies to Chandra plus Koif. So I think he's obliged to cast Supreme Verdict. Or no, he's got a Gideon. So Gideon killing Tarmogoyf is also a pretty good option here.
Yeah, that does seem pretty nice right here. So in comes Gideon, down goes Tarmogoyf. All right, yeah, that was a nice play. That was a nice play by Adam this turn. Another Tarmogoyf for Ben Ruben, though. And Ben does know about the Supreme Verdict in Adam's hand.
Yeah, and Adam's getting to the kind of the life total where Ben has to think about, Chandra pings might get you too low, but the fact that he knows about timely reinforcements just makes that a plan that's unlikely to work, which means I think Ben's much more likely to just be minusing or zeroing Chandra to get extra cards. If he hits a burn spell, he can kill Gideon with Seal of Flame, but he might just play one of his creatures. He's got Scavenging Ooze and Tarmogoyf, and he knows about Supreme Verdict. He just has all this information, which really do shape how he plays.
All right, so it looks like Ben's going to use this 0 ability, Reveal a Plains. Not too exciting. Plains comes into play.
And Ben's really just got to decide. He's got 2 things to decide. 1, do you play 1 creature or 2? And 2, which creature do you play? Scavenging Ooze is nice because it makes Snapcaster a little worse, though Adam doesn't really have any good Snapcaster targets right now. I mean, maybe he'll draw one, but at the moment it's just a Dispel, which is not going to do much anytime soon.
So here comes... Oh, maybe not. Yeah, so here comes the Tarmogoyf, actually.
Yeah. And again, I think that's it's wise to not play both your threats, otherwise you just get verdicted into oblivion. Unfortunately for Ben, Adam can just go Supreme Verdict, 0 Gideon, kill Chandra. Ben's actually really close to just dying himself, but I think this might be a tough game for Ben to win here.
He's definitely treading a fine line between being low enough in life that timely reinforcement doesn't do anything, but also, yeah, so there's a Supreme Verdict from Adam. Down goes the Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, balancing your life total against reinforcements, but also not dying to Gideon. Like,
yeah.
The blue-white deck actually gets to attack.
Yeah, so down goes a Chandra. Just Scavenging Ooze and a land for Ben at this point.
And Scavenging Ooze is essentially a 4/4, which is not the most impressive.
It does get to Ben a little bit of life, but like you said earlier, it's not even something that he's interested in doing at this point. If he exiles a creature, so I guess it does make the Snapcasters worse in Adam's graveyard too.
Yeah, he can't Snapcaster back Supreme Verdict anymore, but I think Adam's at the point where if he plays a Baneslayer Angel and like pluses the Gideon, he's probably not going to die next turn, and if he lands one hit with Baneslayer, then he's in really good shape.
Oh, that's Snapcaster Mage.
Adam could be going. Yeah. It looked like he wanted to go Snapcaster Supreme Verdict and then 0 Gideon, but if he goes for that Snapcaster play and Ben uses Scavenging Ooze, that's actually not going to work out all that well. So it looks like Gideon's coming in first.
Yeah, that's certainly what it looks like, and Ben's going to take it, it seems.
Yeah, I think that you're kind of forced to here.
Yeah. Putting him down to 4. So here comes Baneslayer Angel.
So Adam's actually just making it so Baneslayer is just straight up lethal. Like he's fine with just one turn of a Baneslayer attack or even a Gideon attack being lethal. It's a little riskier because if Ben were to draw, let's see, Ooze is going to be a 4/4. I guess it's actually, if Ben were to draw a removal spell, it's not actually quite enough. Even if it's a removal spell that puts Baneslayer into the graveyard. So I guess that Adam figures that it's unlikely that Ooze is going to kill him this turn.
So Ben's going to crack the Windswept Heath. What do you think about cracking the Heath right now when he doesn't really need it? Is he just trying to thin his deck at this point?
Yeah, but I think that he didn't actually have anything to get since he had...
Oh, he failed to find?
Yeah, he had both his Stomping Grounds, Sacred Foundry, both his Sacred Foundries, Temple Garden, Forest and Plains in play.
Yeah, so the 2 Tarmogoyfs are going to get eaten by that Scooze. Putting it up to 4.
And then Ben's going to get to work on Adam's Instance, presumably. Though he might want to leave one in, or Instance and Sorcerer rather. He might want to leave one in just for Tarmogoyf. So Ben needs a good draw this turn.
Supreme Verdict does get exiled, but let's see what Ben can draw this turn. The 4/4 is not really going to finish off the game. Oh, Noble Hierarch is a draw for him. It's technically a 5/5 now.
So Ben has a way to live. He can Seal of Fire his own Noble Hierarch and then exile it with Scavenging Ooze to gain a life. So he's not dead.
A very convoluted way to not die.
And he also gets to attack because the Ooze is a 5/5 thanks to the Noble's Exalted. And then if Adam blocks, Seal of Fire on the Noble. Again, well, the problem is that happens. Actually, no, that does work because Ben goes to 6 off eating the Noble, then 7 off eating the Baneslayer, and then the Gideon can't quite kill Ben. And so Adam's making sure. I mean, I'm sure this is what Ben's thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it puts him at 1, right?
Yeah, this actually could give Ben, you know, a path to victory here.
Oh,
This is a very good set of plays by Ben.
Oh, it's just a hand extension. So Adam Jansen's going to take it in 3 games versus Ben Ruven. Wow, that was a cool match.
Yeah, I guess Ben did know that Adam would just play a Snapcaster end of turn, so that line of cool plays was really interesting, but ultimately Ben was kind of grasping at straws there.
Yeah. Was it worth it for him to try to play out and maybe just go to 1 life with all that convoluted set of plays you mentioned?
He could have tried, but I think he just realized since he knew Adam had a Snapcaster, that Adam was just going to play the Snapcaster, and then that would have kind of ended Ben's hopes there.
So we're going to take a look at how Josh Mcclain and Garrett Allen are doing this game. Looks like we have green-red Eldrazi versus Abs and Company.
Yeah, and Josh is playing the green-red Eldrazi aggro deck that a lot of the players on Team Face to Face are running. So this looks a little bit more like the blue-white Eldrazi deck in the sense that it's got all the low-drop creatures, and then it has Lightning Bolt and Dismember. So it's much more similar to the blue-white beatdown deck, almost more than it is to the green-red control Eldrazi deck, which doesn't usually play all the low drops.
So 3 different spike feeders in play here. Interesting card. Presumably there's Archangel soon. There they are.
Yeah, this is actually a turbo combo version. Garrett is running 3 spike feeder and 4 Archangel and 4 lingering souls. So this has just a lot of combo token potential here.
So Dismember for Josh. Yeah, like you said, this this one's trying to combo out pretty hard, it seems, because otherwise you see like maybe a couple copies of Archangel and a couple copies of Spike Feeder, but this one's like all in on that plan, it seems.
Yeah, it's got 7 total. But part of the reason it does that is that it doesn't have the Melira combo at all.
Yeah.
And is just going on a slightly more streamlined version. There's also a warship kind of hanging out in the bottom there, which is going to make it a lot more difficult for Josh, even if he does manage to get Garrett to a point where he could threaten lethal.
Does Josh, since this is a post-board game, does Josh have anything you think he might have brought in to fight against that warship?
He's got Kozilek's return, but I think he's just going to die to these tokens. It's going to be hard for that to not happen, because Spike Feeder has the secondary ability of paying 2 to move a +1/+1 counter, so even if Josh lightning bolts one of the tokens, then Garrett can just move a counter to one of the other tokens, and that should do it.
So it looks like, yeah, that's exactly what Garrett is thinking about. Moving a counter, putting it on the other one, and there's a hand extension from Josh to Garrett. That warship doing a little bit of work right there.
Yeah, I mean, Garrett's life was at 1, but his life could have been at 1 for like 10 turns. We just jumped in, and I would not be surprised if that 1 life was let's say a long-standing last point of life.
All right, and over here, that's the end of round 4. We got to watch some sweet, sweet Magic by Ben Ruben and a couple of other cool decks. We will be back with more featured content in a little bit.
Thank you. And just one more question, I guess. Is there any reason you didn't lock one of the spirits that I thought you might have disregarded?
Ultra Pro is the place to go for all of your Magic accessories. With card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and portfolios showing off the best Magic art, Ultra Pro is the standard in safe storage. Visit ultrapro.com for more information.
Hello and welcome back to the booth. This is Gabby Sparts with Brian David Marshall here in the booth with me, and that was the end of round 4, but we're getting ready to take a look at who's here.
Yeah, we're going to take, so this is a modern weekend. There's 3 Grand Prix going on all around the world. Some of them have happened in the future. And we're going to take a look and see who's here. So, like we said, 3 events going on. So, we have over 1,000 players in Melbourne, more than 2,000 players in Bologna, and